If you're getting ready to sell your home, it's important that you know that the home inspection contingency that a buyer is likely to include in their offer is one of the biggest opportunities for your contract to fall apart. In this video, we're going to talk about the home inspection contingency, what it is, how it works, what you need to know, and how you can prepare so that you can avoid some of the common pitfalls that are associated with home inspections from a seller's perspective. If you stick around till the end, I'll share with you the number one mistake that I see sellers make when it comes to home inspections and how you can avoid it. And we're going to get started right now. So jumping right in, first things first, we want to talk a little bit about what is a home inspection and what is a home inspection contingency. Now, first things first, the home inspection contingency is an addendum that's going to be included in the buyer's contract more often than not that gives them the opportunity to do an inspection on the home. During this inspection period, that typically ranges somewhere between 5 and 10 days from the time that you go under contract, the buyer has the opportunity to cancel this contract for any reason or no reason at all. It's very, very important that you as a seller understand that until you are through the inspection contingency negotiation and within the time frame that's provided to the buyer per the contract, they can terminate this contract absolutely without cause. They could do an inspection, they could not do an inspection, they could try and negotiate circumstances with you, repairs, etc., or just skip that altogether and say, we've changed our minds, we're not moving forward with the purchase. Now, this can be a really frustrating, discouraging, infuriating process for sellers who either don't clearly understand the contingency or perhaps already have one foot out the door as they're pursuing their next home. So it's very, very important that you understand. Do not go out and put earnest money, especially non-refundable earnest money, down on a new home prior to inspection being satisfied on your sale. What is the home inspection itself? Well, this is a circumstance in which the buyer has the opportunity to either conduct an inspection on their own. They have to do it either themselves or to hire a third-party licensed home inspector. They cannot bring their father who's a contractor, their old neighbor who's a sheetrock guy, their uncle who's an electrician. Those people are not able to do the inspection, but a home buyer themselves or a home inspector are the ones who are legally allowed per the contract to conduct the inspection. An inspection typically is going to last somewhere between 90 minutes and up to 4 hours for really large or complicated properties. And the inspector is going to go through the property, look at it from top to bottom, evaluating all the systems of the home. We're talking about the roof, the attic, the interior of the home, the exterior of the home, the crawl space, the foundation. They're looking at electrical, they're looking at plumbing, they're looking for cosmetic issues, they're looking for, to ensure that all of the appliances are in good working condition. So this is the inspection. It's an opportunity for the buyer to get to know this home in more intimate detail and to learn and discover and uncover if there are prospective concerns with the home that they may not have known about just simply looking at it as a buyer walking through the home, taking it all in visually without either a trained eye or the opportunity to evaluate some of these other areas of the home, such as this crawl space and attic, which you are more often not going to see as a prospective buyer when you're simply touring a home prior to writing an offer. So we've just talked a bit about the things that the inspector is going to look for while they're at the home, the types of systems that they're going to evaluate before they compile a report and deliver that to the buyer. Now, it's important to note that all inspectors operate a little bit differently in terms of the level of detail specific to largely cosmetic things, right? If there's scuffs in the floor and the walls and so on and so forth, some inspectors may just consider that normal wear and tear versus others may call it out. But really the goal, the objective, the idea behind this inspection is for the inspector to identify prospective issues within the home that are related to functionality or related to health and safety, and to be able to call those things out. Now, it's important to know that the inspector can advise that a buyer employ an additional third party, an expert in a respective field, to further evaluate a system of the home if they believe that it is warranted. So if there's an issue with the furnace, they're going to recommend a third party HVAC professional come and inspect the furnace. If there's an electrical issue, they're going to recommend an electrician. If there's a plumbing issue, a plumber. For the roof, they're going to recommend a roofer. And so there is an opportunity for the buyer to further extend their inspection contingency for a defined period of time for them to bring additional inspections into the home, additional inspectors into the home to be able to evaluate specific items that were called out in their report that may be of prospective concern. Once they are through that inspection process, they're going to have a detailed report from the home inspector that includes photos and descriptions of all the things that the inspector has identified within the home that may be good for the buyer to know. It's important to note, no matter the age of the home, it's very, very common to have 20, 25, some odd 30 items that are on an inspection report, really for a home of any age. I bought a brand new home back in 2017. That home had a laundry list of things that came back on the inspection report. Now, most of them were items that subcontractors had not finished yet, so you could think of it more as a punch list as opposed to a repair list. But if you send an inspector into a home, they're going to find things that need to be addressed. So what happens when they get their report? Well, when they get their report, they're going to get together with their agent and they're going to review that report, and they're going to deliver to you a document called an inspection response. And that inspection response is going to say one of three things. It's either going to say our inspection of the property is satisfied and we are through the inspection contingency and moving forward to closing. It's going to say our inspection of the property is not to our satisfaction and we are terminating this contract and asking for our earnest funds in return. Or the third and most likely is that, hey, we had our inspection, here's a list of things that we have concerns about that we're going to ask you to correct, address, repair, etc. And then we have the opportunity on the selling side to sit down together, your listing agent and you, to review this response that's come over from the buyers, and we get to respond back to them. We again have really three options. We can effectively say, yes, we agree to everything you've asked for. In that case, the inspection contingency is satisfied and all parties are moving forward. We have the opportunity to say, no, we are not doing any of these things. You can either effectively take the home as is or not. That's up to you. Or we can say, we don't really want to do all these things. Here's an alternate solution that we might propose. Now, in the case of a seller circumstance in which the home is already vacant, the seller is not living in the property, maybe they're clear across the country at this point while the home is on the market, oftentimes there's minor repairs that need to be done to a home, but the seller is not there to manage those repairs, hire contractors, so on and so forth. So a very common outcome in this particular instance is the seller going back and saying, hey, check the box that says I have an alternate proposal for this circumstance, and that is, instead of doing all of these repairs, we will give you a credit towards your closing costs, let's say $3, $5, $7, some odd $1,000, depending on the severity of the issue. And instead of us doing these repairs for you, we will just give you a credit that will cover these repairs. And once you've taken possession of the property, once we've closed, you can identify contractors of your choosing and you can complete these items as you wish. And we are effectively funding the ability for you to do so. Now, you as the buyer are then back in the driver's seat on this situation. You can accept their response, or you can decline their response, or once more, you can propose an alternate solution. Ultimately, this can go back and forth about 3 times before we're kind of at a standstill in which the buyer will ultimately decide if they would like to move forward or if they would like to terminate the contract. All right, so the next thing we want to do is talk a little bit about how you can best prepare for this home inspection, things that you need to do around the house to make this a quick and easy process for this inspector, and also to make the home present well, feel like it's clean, organized, neat, tidy, what have you. So some of the big things you can do: you can declutter, you can clean, you can organize. If you're going to be moving anyways, it's a great time to start packing, start getting stuff out of the house and out of the way, because the initial impression that inspector will have when they walk through the front door is either going to make them feel like, oh wow, this is a great, clean, cleanly home that's been well cared for, and I'm sure it's going to go smooth, versus walking in and having a negative initial impression, even if that's just, with regards to clutter and lack of cleanliness, might also set the tone for them to be thinking, hey, there must be other stuff going on here if this is what I'm seeing visually. So we want to clean, we want to declutter, we want to organize, we want to start packing if and when it makes sense to do so. Other big things that we want to do: we want to replace all the light bulbs. If an inspector cannot get a light bulb to work based on the light switch, they're going to call it out in the report. If it gets called out in the report, a buyer might say, hey, we need an electrician to go through and evaluate all these things because we don't know if maybe it's just the bulb or maybe it's the switch. There might be a problem. So we want to try and eliminate things like that wherever possible. Other things we want to do: we want to make sure that we have smoke detectors and those have fresh batteries. We want to make sure that we have CO2 detectors and that those are functional and displayed as per code. Typically that's one per level of the home. Straps on the water heater. There's seismic straps for if and when there were to be an earthquake. There's these metal straps that attach your water heater to the wall. Those are things that'll get called out not only prospectively on an inspection, but that's also a condition of most appraisals. So if a buyer is financing their purchase of your home, that's something that's going to get called out. The smoke and CO2 detectors by an appraiser would also get called out. And those are things that could result in additional visits from the appraiser. So those are things that we want to go ahead and check off the list. We want to fix loose door handles. We want to fix running toilets. We also want to make it easy for the inspector to access things like the electrical panel. If this is located in your garage, you want to make sure that that area is clear. You don't have things that are stacked up against it. We want to give easy access to the attic. Again, if you've got like a pull down ladder or if there's a hatch that's in a closet, we want to make sure that that's going to be accessible. If they can't access it, they're going to call that out in the report. It may result in another trip back or having an additional inspection because they could not gain access to that system of the home while they were there. The crawl space, same thing. If there's an access exterior or interior to the crawl space, we want to make sure that that is accessible. And then last but not least, it's a really good idea to have your furnace and your water heater serviced along with fireplaces, gas fireplaces within the home prior to having an inspection so that those things appear to be clean, operating in good condition. Most of the time, if you have a furnace inspected, the inspector or the service provider will actually put a note with the date and the service that was done on the sticker that's on the furnace itself. So the inspector is going to be able to say, okay, based on the serial number here, this furnace is 8 years old and it looks like they just recently had it serviced as of last month. So these are things that we can do to set ourselves up for success preemptively to the time that the inspector will be in the home and try and make their experience both as positive and efficient there as possible. Hey, if this is your first time to the channel, we encourage you to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you can keep up on all the content that we're releasing about Bellingham, Whatcom County, and all the great things that are going on here in this area. My name is Jeff Ingen. I'm with MJB Real Estate Group here in Bellingham, and every day we get calls, texts, and emails from people just like you who are considering a move to this area, and we absolutely love it. So whether you're thinking about moving tomorrow, 10 months from now, or sometime in between, we encourage you to reach out. You can find all of our contact information below, and we are standing by and ready to help you in any way that we can. Another thing that you'll see pop up throughout the video is a link to our free relocation guide. So if you're thinking about moving to the area from somewhere outside of Whatcom County, encourage you to download that, take a look, absolutely free, no strings attached. But for now, let's get back to talking about home inspections from a seller's perspective. Next, we're going to talk about a question that comes up from time to time from sellers. Should I do my own home inspection before we go on the market? Now, here in our area, it's not remarkably common for sellers to do their own inspection. I would say in the case of a home that has a lot of deferred maintenance, a lot of things that have not been taken care of, and we're putting the home on the market with the expectation that we're essentially selling this home as is. Well, in those types of situations, it might be a good idea for you to go ahead and do an inspection for a couple different reasons. Number one, it gives you a full understanding of the property, top to bottom, upside down, inside out, what have you, so that when you do price the home, you can price it according to the things that a prospective buyer is going to have to come in and fix. You can justify your price based on that report already being done. In some cases, a seller will have a home that's in phenomenal shape and they'll say, you know what, we want this thing to be completely turnkey, completely top notch. We're going to go ahead and do our own inspection. We're going to get that report back and we're going to go ahead and preemptively fix or address any of the issues that come up in the inspection so that not only can we provide that inspection to a prospective buyer, but we can provide them with a list of the repairs that we've preemptively done. Now, sometimes there is value in that. Sometimes a buyer will look at the report that you've just had done a short time ago. They'll review that report and they will find that it is sufficient for their purposes to go ahead and proceed with the purchase without having an additional inspection of their own. So effectively, they would waive their inspection contingency on the basis of you already having a report that you've provided. That doesn't always happen. There's no guarantees. You may have a report that's already been prepared and a buyer may say, I would still like my own inspector to go through the property and evaluate on my behalf. So pre-inspections occasionally are done. They can be done. It's certainly up to you as the seller. those are kind of the two situations in which I see them the most. The home that's in really poor condition, we're going to sell it as is. The home that's in really good condition, and we want to get ahead of anything that might come up and go ahead and preemptively make those repairs. Another question that often comes up from sellers is, when will we get a copy of the buyer's inspection report? And the answer in most circumstances is you will not get a copy of the buyer's home inspection report, and there are actually a number of reasons that you may not want it. So one example that I give a lot is a circumstance in which I listed a property. The owners had actually built the home 20 some odd years prior. They maintained the home phenomenally well, took incredible care of it. One circumstance that they had not known about prior to the time that their home went under contract and an inspector came to the property was that there was a lot going on in the crawl space. So there was some accumulated water from a high water table. There was also some rodent activity. The rodent activity had caused some of the insulation to be pulled down, some of the ductwork for the heating system to be pulled down. And this was something that the seller was completely unaware of because they had not been into their crawl space in a long period of time. So now we're in a situation where the buyers are asking for a remedy for this particular problem. Now, this has now become a known issue to the seller. And when we talk about the selling process, one of the things that we have to do is fill out a seller disclosure. So this is a disclosure that talks about the condition of the property during the time that you've owned it. It asks some basic questions like, has the roof leaked? Has the basement flooded? Has there been any shifting or settling? Has there been any natural disasters that have impacted the property? Things of that nature. We're trying to help prospective buyer better understand the property. So you fill out the seller's disclosure based on your knowledge of the property today, based on the time that you have lived in the property. Now, in this case, we didn't disclose anything about the crawl space because we didn't know about it. But in this case, we're going through this process of engaging with these buyers and their report. We've now learned that there is an issue in the crawl space. So of course, that's something that's going to be negotiated, something that's likely going to get fixed. But a buyer may want, and or a seller may think that they want, for that full report to come over so that they can review it in more detail. Now, there are circumstances in which a seller might want to see a full report. Maybe a seller knows the condition of the home and they feel like the things that the buyer is asking for are exorbitant and unnecessary. They might say, you know what, I just want to see a copy of the whole report. But it is important for you to know as the seller that anything that you learn as of that report now needs to be updated on your seller disclosure. So if this transaction with this buyer falls through, then you are going to have to update your seller disclosure and provide these new details to a prospective buyer that you did not know about before. A more common circumstance is for the sellers to go ahead and request that the buyers provide only the sections of the report that pertain to the items that they're requesting be provided to them. Now, it's important for you to know if the buyer provides the seller with a copy of the report without their written permission, it actually voids the buyer's contingency. So generally speaking, as a seller, you're probably not going to see the report. If there's extenuating circumstances, you might see the report. More often than not, if you're seeing any part of the report, again, it's going to be isolated to the specific concerns that the buyer has and the things that we are trying to remedy so that we can keep this transaction moving forward. All right, so as we work to bring this video to the finish line, as promised, I'm going to share with you the number one mistake that I see sellers making when it comes to the home inspection contingency and the associated request, the response that we're getting from the buyer. And that is for the seller to take personal offense to the buyer's response on inspection. It's important for you to understand that this is not a personal attack on you. This is not an attack on the home. In most cases, if they're delivering this document to you and making this request, they very much still want to move forward with the purchase of the home. If that were not the case, they would have simply checked the box that said, we are not buying the home, we're terminating the transaction, we're moving forward. So they're delivering requests to you. Now, sometimes, yes, buyers can be unreasonable in what they're asking for, and oftentimes we figure out a way to negotiate, to keep things on track, to keep things moving forward. But this report and this response from the buyer is not a personal attack. You have to do your best to not get offended, to not take it personally, to understand that they're trying to do the best that they can as they're making this very large purchase and very large investment to be sure that it's sound and that this home is going to serve their family well during the time that they call it their own. So it's difficult to do. We're emotionally invested in our homes. We're emotionally invested in this process. Oftentimes we've raised families here. We love this home, and for people to call out faults within it can be a difficult thing to experience. But it's important for you to try and stay neutral, try and understand that, again, they're just trying to do their best to make sure that this home is going to be safe and functional for their family. So As always, I hope this video has been helpful. Again, want to encourage you one last time. You can find all of our contact information below. If there's anything that we can do to help, we're standing by and ready to help. But one last time, remind you that we do have that free relocation guide if you're thinking about moving to Bellingham or the surrounding areas from a distance. But again, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I look forward to seeing you again soon.